OWASP ZAP testing requires calling a baseline scan, download the file, convert the report format, publish test results, and finally destroy the OWASP container. You also need to create a resource group and storage account, lastly an OWASP container. To consolidate packages into a feed, you can create an Azure feed that uses upstream source, then modify the configuration to reference the artifacts feed. Finally run a package restore. License procurement is manual, everything else is automatic. Summarize and make list are KQL queries for filtering. Git LFS allows you to manage larger files and not have them always consuming resources. To use it, you need to install, configure the extension you want to add using config add, then commit the change. You want to then import the LFS module and update it. You have to use PAT tokens to authenticate it. Major version changes include renaming a parameter. Minor include deprecating functionality or adding a feature while keeping backwards compatibility. The TFS database import service and the latest version of TFS-RTW is all that's needed to migrate to Azure DevOps if you want to only preserve the dates of changes, dates of work item revisions, and a migration of all artifacts. Azure artifacts are used to create, host and share packages with your team. The repos let you store code. Pipeline view allow you to see all the stages and tests, with a summary of test results. Lastly, Azure storage for larger files you want to share which change frequently. The organization URL and the authorization credentials are all that's required for an unattended install. The agent but know the URL and the creds of the org. At Azure Pipeline subscribe project URL. Progressive exposure is used in canary deployments where the experience can be monitored in rings, a small subset of the servers. Rolling replaces instances of the previous version of an application with instances of the new version. Feature flags allow you to turn on a feature at a different time for different people. Blue, green is a flip it on and off for everyone. An application insights test can trigger an Azure Logic app using a request trigger. To create a server using DSC, create a DSC config using PowerShell, then copy the file to a storage account and then configure the DSC extension on the VM. You can also create an automation account, configure it for DSC, then onboard the VMs to the automaton account. Lastly, install the DSC extension on the VM. Windows feature and file are required DSC fields for IIS. For IIS, you need a hosted Windows container also. When code scanning with GitHub, you have to add the name of the non-default branch to the push sepfishiation in the code scan workflow and update the code in the pull request. Admin is required to push to the repo, maintain is required to manage issues and pull request, and triage is used for managing the repo only without accessing sensitive data. To integrate Azure AD, you need the tenant ID, sub ID, and app ID. Or app ID, secret and tenant ID. Selenium can automate UI testing. Task groups allow you to run specific tasks during pipeline execution. A developer in Azure has basic access. A non-dev has stakeholder access for feedback testing. Ignoring files can be accomplished by adding the file to the gitignore file, then git add, git ignore, and then lastly git commit to see if it works.